Welcome back, everybody. This is Tal with Lead with Giants TV. I'm joined this afternoon by Chris Edmonds. He's the author of the Culture Engine book. Welcome, Chris. Thank you so much for being with us this afternoon.
Thrilled to be here with you and Liz. Thank you.
Great. Liz, welcome back.
Thanks, guys. Good to be here.
Great. So, Chris, you're a new leader. You're coming into a new company. You're noticing there's a toxic culture. Things don't go well. One of the things that you were part of the interview process. They told you this is a culture we need to fix. That's why you're here. What is the first thing you do?
I would typically start with my own team, and it's just an interesting opportunity. If I'm a leader of a part of the organization, there might be ways that I can influence the rest of the organization, but the only way I'm really going to do that is by getting my own house in order. And we've had so many examples of that where it's a smaller portion of the organization that really has a leader that is willing to engage and invest in the time and energy to fix the culture, to refine the culture. But they also have a passion for creating a workplace that's, fun, inspiring, based on trust, dignity, and respect. And what's interesting again is that they may have very smart people that they work with as peers, but they've never had that experience. The only role models they've had as leaders is to kind of focus exclusively on getting stuff done, and if that stuff is done with whips and chains, then that's all they know. That's what they do. Mm-hmm. So the first thing to build some credibility for this is to make sure that my own team is crystal clear on the reason for being for our team. Mm-hmm. That involves people's ideas on pulling together, what do we do? And who do we do it for? And to what end? Is there a wonderful outcome, a vision that we're looking to accomplish in 12 months or 18 months or whatever that's more than just making money? Making money is a good thing, but it's how we helping people have their lives be easier, etc. There's some power in having, especially if the organization already has values in place, mm-hmm. There's some immense power that comes from getting those into tangible behavioral terms.
Right.
And maybe taking this sacred cow, oh my God, we've got these things printed on the backs of our business cards.
Right.
And shifting them from this vague, kind of cute overarching framework, but that's never been measured, to making it explicitly measured, explicit expectations, coaching people on how they interact with each other. And there's some interesting stuff that comes from that, because what happens is some of those leaders, once you finally say, oh, these are the behaviors I want you to model, they go, well, thank God, why didn't you tell me? I can do that.
Right.
And they embrace it. There's a percentage, maybe there's 10% that go, this is something I don't believe in, I'm out of here. And that's okay. That's okay. They will probably be better suited to work somewhere else anyway. But that middle 80 or 70% is watching to see, is this really going to stick? Is this really important? As they see that it is important, that it does stick, they show up. They are solving problems more proactively. They'll walk past you as a leader in the organization and go, that problem you didn't know you had, I fixed it. Mm-hmm. And I always ask leaders, so how do you respond to that? It's like, there was a problem? I should know about all problems. No, you don't have to know about all problems. What you have to have is people who are smart enough to see the problem and smart enough to fix it.
Right.
And they want to fix it. That's the idea, is to get them to feel like that's kind of part of their job. They can move the organization forward. So the reality is, can you kind of take a small team, maybe it's a 30-person division, and have that team within 6 months, within 8 months, have performance be significantly different, have their service experiences with their customers be significantly different, and see better results and profits? Would the rest of the organization stop and go, what are you feeding those people over there?
Right.
Some people do. Some people do. The reality is that if I'm a peer of yours and I see you doing this over there, I'm thinking, well, good for you. They were primed for that. Right. That would never work in my team. And so it's why, and it goes back to Liz's question in the last segment about leaders being the drivers of the culture. Start in your sphere of influence and what abilities you have to modify, change, refine expectations and standards and incentives, and then just keep operating. If the rest of the organization starts to get infected by that idea as well, that's pretty cool. But for the most part, they're going to look at you and think you're a little bit crazy.
Right.
I'll be jealous of the performance improvements you're going to get. Not sure if that's the answer you were looking for.
No, it's great because I know several people are, especially when you are a new manager in a company, whether it's a department, as you said, or a team, or whatever it is that you're taking on. One of the issues or one of the challenges is about the culture and what you're walking into, which is my next question would be, is you walking into finger pointing and blame typically between people. So how does one addresses with that, with still being the person who's kind of an outsider in the beginning and seeing that unfolding, and that's definitely part of the culture where people are just there's no accountability, there's finger pointing. How does somebody walk into that and not go home just you know?
You
How do we
might
do
go
that?
home and kick the cat or kick the dog,
Yeah,
etc. Anyway,
yeah.
it's very hard. It's very frustrating to realize, and you may not have known exactly how difficult it is to get stuff done in the culture. They may have said,
Right.
we've got some problems and we need to fix this, but you may not really know until, again, you get in deep enough to see what a relationship's like, what are promises like. Are promises and commitments really kept, or are they not kept? And that's just part of the norms. So again, it goes back to, you need to pull your team together and go, we're going to make sure that our promises are crystal clear, that our commitments are crystal clear, and we're going to keep our commitments. And if we're unable to keep our commitments, we're going to say, this is going to be a problem. I know you need this by Thursday. Here's what is in the way. I'm working on this. It could be Monday. But we're not going to let Thursday pass with no word said, because that makes us look like we know, which we do, and we're not caring, which apparently we don't. So you start to kind of say, we're going to break those bad habits, and maybe it's only 30 people that are going to start breaking those habits. What's really interesting and what's amazingly powerful is that culture reinforces the way things are, which may not be reinforcing things the way you'd like. So if you want something, you have to be very crystal clear about what it is, and then you have to align coaching, reinforcement, modeling, incentives, so that it's like, oh, that's the path you want me on. And I've used in a couple of cases with blog posts over the past few months where I've got this jungle and this clear, asphalted little path, and it's like, that's what you as a leader have to create. It's like, we're going to stay on this path. Now, are people going to be, maybe because they're interacting with others who aren't living under these new, what we call liberating rules, are they going to be tempted to kind of behave like the old way? Sure they are. Sure they are. And they got to kind of come back and go, here's what I forgot. I didn't mean to. And what's interesting is that as people start to get committed to how to do this right and how to do this well, how to serve internally as well as you're trying to serve externally, then they know what's good. They know what's not good. And so what you're trying to do is to get that path so crystal clear. And when people stay on the path, the leader has to be there and go, that a boy, that a girl, that was absolutely brilliant. It's exactly what we need to do. And when they stray, you have to go, tell me what happened. You don't hit them first. You say, tell me what happened, because you got to realize that you're trying to retrain. You're trying to create new habits. So what's interesting is culture, is a toxic culture powerful enough to erode the best intentions of great leaders? Absolutely. Absolutely. And the problem is those leaders leave. And those organizations may actually have enough of a monopoly to actually make money with whatever products and services they're selling, but
Right.
it's miserable to live there, miserable. So what I hope happens is that with this book and with this framework, leaders don't put up with lousy cultures anymore. They do what they can within their own sphere of influence, and if they can't, they lovingly move on.
Right.
And they find it in an environment where the values are important and keeping promises is important and having fun and working with teammates that you actually respect is as important as getting every promise delivered, every kind of commitment made.
So I know that let's finish this on a high note here. That you are. I really love our discussion, and I want to finish with a high note because I know many leaders will watch this. Is the concept of servant leadership exists with Ken Blanchard and the company, and as you are a big proponent of that, how important is not just the concept or the idea of servant leadership, but how important that is to a thriving culture to be a servant leader. And I get the idea that I always like that, for example, in the customer service industry, I was listening to a podcast recently, and one of the person who was interviewed, he said something that just hit it right on the nail, and he said, customer service doesn't begin with the customer, it begins with the employee.
Absolutely.
And I really love that because when you look at companies who have great customer service, they begin with the employees, and of course they take care of the customer, but it's the other way around. So talk to us about how servant leadership is critical for a thriving culture.
Well, if you think about the moment of an impression with a consumer, with a customer, and an external kind of player interacting with you all at a hotel or at a retail environment or at a sandwich shop or
Right.
where the way that employee feels about their boss, their peers, the company is reflected in every word they say, and every rolling of the eyes or looking in the eyes and
Right.
smiling. Every range of emotions that's demonstrated is caused by the way those players are treated. So a woman named Colleen Barrett was Herb Kelleher's administrative assistant way back when
Right.
Southwest Airlines began in Texas, and she followed him as president. She's now president emeritus, and she and Ken Blanchard have written a book. Ken's written books with a whole bunch of really smart people, which is really cool because we get access to them. We get to pose questions.
Yes.
He said, our employees are our first customer, and our
Mm.
passengers are our second customer. And if we can't create an environment where our first customer legitimately feels valued, honored, respected, that we value their skills, then the experience that the second customer has is never going to be consistent. It's never going to meet our standard. So I think the servant leadership mindset is shifting from this is not about me and my success as a leader as much as it's making sure that the people that I am trying to inspire, my team members, they're my first customer.
Mm-hmm.
And so I need to make sure they have the skills that are needed. They need to have the tools that are needed. They need to have the knowledge that's needed. They need to have base to actually make a decision and act when it's needed. And if I can position myself to be nimble enough, because people are going to need all kinds of different things from me. They may need me to leave them alone.
Right.
They may need me to teach them how to use this new email system, and I don't even know, or whatever.
Right.
I need to make sure that they have everything they need to be successful and that they feel trusted, honored, and respected. That's servant leadership at its core.
That's great. That's great. Well, thank you so much, Chris. You've definitely added value with all the topics. I know that a lot of leaders will take away great things, and as we, sharpen our saw for 2015, we want to get better, and your the conversation definitely helps us get those minds thinking. And I strongly encourage. There's a framework in the book. There's the assessment tool as well that can be purchased at Chris's website. And Chris, just with closing here, tell us where people can find you and where they can find those tools.
Very good. The website is drivingresultsthroughculture.com. That's kind of a brilliant name for all the work that I've been doing. So driving results through culture.com, and there's all kinds of tools. The book has its own site called thecultureengine.com. There's a free chapter there, a sample chapter that you can kind of get your feet wet if you choose to before purchasing the book. I'm at SC Edmonds on Twitter, and you can find me with a little longer names on Facebook and on LinkedIn and on Google Plus as well.
Good, good. That's great. And for those of you who, you're familiar with the community, but we're also Lead with Giants community on leadwithgiants.com, and we also have a Facebook and LinkedIn community as well as Google Plus. So this is where you can find us, and Chris is actually part of that community as well. So it's a pleasure. And so thanks everybody. Hopefully this week is a holiday week, but you'll get a lot of good stuff to think about as we always do for the new year. So thank you so much, Liz, as well. Thank you so much for being here and being part of the conversation.
Thank you, Captain. Very useful information.
Thanks very much, Liz. Tal, thank you.
Great. Thank you. Let's close this up here.